And I'm talking today about Mars-Venus conjunction in the sky, and also Sun and Saturn, which are combust. We're going to have this sort of configuration for the next, through like early February, with as the Sun moves through Capricorn and as Mars and Venus get closer together. So it's a pretty intense configuration that we're going to be dealing with here for the next couple of for about the next month or so. Um, Before I get going, I want to make sure and let people know to like, share, and subscribe to the video if you do like it. Ring the bell to get notified of new videos and live stream. Again, subscribe, ring the bell, leave a comment, and also you can share and like this on Facebook and Twitter. Just being intentional about doing this now, because people always say you need to tell people to like, share, and subscribe. So I'm just letting people know that as well. This is very important. I do this stuff for free, but share this with people if you like it. I think it's beneficial to people. And of course, I think that you do as well. So spread the love. These are, free offerings, but it does help me, spread the word. Show people how cool and enlightened you are. No, I also do want to say one more thing here real quick before we get going, and that is to let people know about the 2022 personal Vedic astrology forecast. Again, if you watch my updates, you know that I'm pretty, quite accurate with all of these transits and shifts and whatnot. And I have put together a 2022 personal forecast where I analyze the 10 most important shifts for your sign. And you can either get that analysis for your sign less than $20 or for all 12 signs. So again, this is a great way for you to understand yourself in this upcoming year. A lot of transformational shifts. We're in the midst of a couple right now. And one of them is this Venus retrograde, which has been pretty big. I mean, we actually have two big retrogrades right now, Mercury and Venus. Both of them are analyzed in that 2022 forecast. So again, it's important for you to know what this Mercury retrograde cycle means for you in 2022, because if you're Aries, for example, it's happening in your 10th house. Mercury rules the 3rd and 6th house. There are also later retrograde cycles happening in Taurus and in Virgo. And these are different for all 12 signs. So again, that's what I'm doing in this yearly forecast. For example, practical thinking in progress, Mercury 6 months retrograde in the earth signs. So he's in earth signs for 6 months. So it's a huge shift. So, really look into that. But we have the Mercury retrograde cycle. We also have this Venus retrograde cycle happening now, which I've already talked about quite a bit. But now we also have Mars coming up to Venus. Now we're getting interesting. Mars is approaching Venus retrograde in Sagittarius. So not only is it, where we're processing our disappointments with partners and with other people, people just disappoint us, don't they? I thought it was going to be so nice to hang out with somebody, and then they disappoint you. We have a bunch of ideas about what it might be, and it doesn't work out. Well, guess what? They disappoint you, you disappoint them. This is the big time of the disappointments. Disappointment is Venus in Sagittarius and also Pisces, by the way. Oh, I thought Venus exalted was good. It was good. Now you're saying it's bad. Which is it? It can be good. What can we learn through disappointment, especially disappointment with fantasy, projection, romance? What are we here to learn with our own disappointments? Well, we're here to learn that we only have disappointments where we had expectations and hopes and, I imagined how good it was going to be and my happiness was going to come from this connection with you. By the way, I'm not trying to be cynical. I love being with people, and I, love romance and, having relationship. I'm Gemini with Moon and Libra, huh? I'm a pretty romantic guy underneath it all. Might be hard to see that, but I like connection. I like that kind of thing, right? But you have to be realistic about it. And these projections and these expectations lead to a lot of disappointment. So this is a time of disappointment with others, right? And maybe even like enthusiasm with wanting to connect, for example, wanting to have a connection and being enthusiastic and excited. Again, this is just Venus retrograde in Sagittarius. And yet it's retrograde. So again, Jupiter's like, oh, the big thing, it's going to be great. I'm going to find, again, find my soulmate is Venus in Sagittarius or Venus in Pisces. Archetype, just pumping that full of energy. Now Mars is coming along, and Mars is now going to get kind of fired up about it. He's going to get kind of fired up about it, and he's going to be, he can now maybe get kind of irritated and aggravated. Oh, you disappointed me. You frustrated me. You said this. Now you said that. You acted like you were this. Now I see you're that. Look. Put it in the human ego machine of, I thought everything was here to make me happy. I thought you were here to make me happy, and now you're not. So again, Mars gets frustrated because we want things to be black and white. I expected this, but it was this. Now I'm irritated and aggravated, right? And so when Mars and Venus get together, this is why there's frustration, especially like in relationships. Again, because Venus wants the connection. Venus has that, oh, I like spending time around you. It was so nice to spend time around you. Let's do it more. And then the other person's like, no. And you're like, ugh, I thought it was good. Now it's bad. Why not? It was good. I liked it. And now you're stopping me from getting what I wanted. And so Mars gets frustrated. Mars can get frustrated with the Venus part because Mars is like, Mars, even as it relates to relationships, for example, is fired up and enthusiastic, right? Fired up and enthusiastic about everything, really. But as it pertains to relationships, Mars likes to have fun in this context. It's, very physical, which again can also be, you would say sexual. Mars and Venus, when they come together, does create a lot of a, strong sexual dynamic for sure. Like if people have that conjunction in their natal chart, because again, Mars is also where we're kind of burning for a sort of outcome, right? So when it interacts with Venus, it's, whatever Mars is doing, it's like, okay, this is my goal and my outcome, and right now my energy is going in that direction. If it's with Venus, it's like that direction is something sensual, beautiful, that's going to make me happy, and I want it. So we kind of burn to satisfy our desires when Mars is with Venus. Again, any planet that Mars joins in the natal chart, he's going to kind of sort of burn to, kind of actualize that thing or trying to make that thing happen, right? So again, when he's joined Jupiter, we kind of burn to find a teacher and a guru and defend those teachings. And, again, it's usually quite beneficial, at least for the Jupiter part, because Mars activates it. Here, Mars is going to really be activating that Venus desire. Again, so it can put a lot of energy there. And especially, for example, if you're in a happy, loving couple, for example, and a good relationship or whatever kind of relationship, it could definitely be a time of like high libido and high sexuality. It could also, and again, especially if you have that way of being able to deal with each other, that could be a lot of very strong, even kind of satisfying, particularly like, very physical kind of, coming together in that regard. If you're in a relationship and you have a harder time getting along, that can be very combustible because people, you get into that kind of, again, black and white sort of battling. Now, so I'm explaining Mars influence on Venus, but Venus influence on Mars is often sort of in the reverse, because Mars also is, Mars is about wanting to be clear about the goal and where we're going and making it, even kind of simple in that context. Mars is a very simplistic energy. Again, it's like a child or you can even look like an infant or something. It's like this thing, and if I get it, great. If I don't, it's kind of like we're, very hot visceral energy, right? Very primal energy, and it needs to be aligned with a righteous course, right? This is why the best influence on Mars is Jupiter, because Jupiter is kind of like the big brother, even mythologically. Mars is Subramanya, the young boy with the spear, the youngest son of Lord Shiva and Parvati, and his older brother is Ganesha, or Jupiter, who has more of kind of like the wisdom. Mars is ready there to defend the righteous course. He's like the general. He's ready. Again, the general is very simple. He follows orders. So point me in a direction and I'll go after it. So this is why it's important to have a good direction and a good teaching, and we're fighting for the right cause. Very black and white in that context. It's not a complicated energy. Underneath it all, it's very, very black and white, and it shows the power of our actions to, break connection and other things. This is why really the main, Mars is kind of like in many ways the sort of king of yoga and disciplined action and what you're actually doing in the moment. The moment shows up and you have to do this thing or that thing. It's actually not that complicated. Might be complicated in our mind, but in our body, it's not. So Mars is very much that simplicity of our actions in the body. Okay. And so Venus' influence on that is to kind of water down that clarity, because Venus is like, underneath it all, again, Mars is like, this is right, and I'm going to do what's right. This is the thing that's right, and I'm going to do it. By the way, this is why it's very hard to do what's right. We all know what's right, or we have an idea what's right, but how often do we actually do what's right? Because it's harder to do what's right. It's easy to do what's easy or comfortable. When we have the opportunity to, eat, for example, these are the easiest ways to understand. Do we always eat the food that we know is best for us in the right proportion to make us strong? That's what Mars, part of us, wants. No, we eat the food that tastes the best. We eat probably a little too much of it. We sit on our butt and be lazy. That's Venus. So Venus and Mars have they're opposite energies. They have a kind of, you could say sort of detrimental impact on each other as far as the purity of their nature. Venus wants to accommodate and get along and create consensus and share equally. Mars has no agenda for that. It's no, this is right. This is what I'm doing. That's it. It's simple. What I'm doing and who I am and my strength. Venus is, but your strength is more important, and then trying to accommodate and make things beautiful and happy. Mars is like, I don't care if it's beautiful and happy. I want it to be right. So, there's the old saying that says, would you rather be right or happy? You know that one? That's usually said to couples and they're about their fights and whatnot. Would you rather be right is Mars. Would you rather be happy is Venus. It's a tricky question. Usually it's heavily biased toward saying, I'd rather be happy. Okay. But it's too simplistic, because saying I'd rather be happy means I'd rather be happy right now, regardless of whether or not what I'm doing is right. Part of you likes the being happy. The other part of you doesn't like that if you're being happy at the expense of being right. Again, there's nothing wrong with being right. We know it's right. And over time, you might say, okay, I'd rather be happy right now. Again, that's Venus. But you keep doing that over and over again, and eventually if you're doing it at the expense of what you know is right, especially your own values and whatnot, eventually all of that, I'd rather be happy now, so I'm not worried about what's right. I'd rather be happy now. I'm not worried about what's right. I'll keep accommodating something, even though I know it's not the best thing for me. Eventually, you're going to blow up and explode and probably blame the other person for it when you were doing it the whole time. You were making the compromise because you wanted to be happy right now. Nothing wrong with that. But again, like most simplistic statements like that, they don't really pay off, because part of you also wants to be right. You're still an individual who has a sense of right and wrong. Like, for example, let's say you don't drink, like you don't drink alcohol, and you're with someone who, they drink a little bit. Well, it might not bother you, but over time, something in you thinks, I don't want to be with someone who drinks. I don't drink, and their mood changes a little bit. It's not that bad, but, and you don't want to say anything because, well, now I'm being all, badass or something. Just, it's okay. And you kind of let it go. But then you see it starts to get a little worse. And if you let it build up and you act like, and then you drop little hints like, oh, you're drinking a lot tonight, huh? I had a couple extra. And you drop little hints to try to make it seem like I'm trying to let you know that it's bothering me. That ain't good enough. If you're okay with it, you're okay with it. And people think you're okay with it. And then finally it all builds up. And then like, I don't like that you drink. And I've been telling you, blah, and the other person might be like, what? Why? Because you'd rather be happy in the moment, which means make the other person happy and keep the connection going, because Venus is the part of us that wants connection. But understand, you want the connection for you because you want the connection. And you'd rather have the connection and be happy right now than do what you know is right for you. Again, it doesn't mean it's not a universal right. By the way, that was just an example. That's like one of my examples, by the way, because it's one for me. By the way, it's not even a judgment. It's just the way it is. Like, I don't drink. I don't feel like being around people who drink. Not because they're bad people, but people's mood changes. It gets weird. Whether they know it or not, it's like, okay. And I'm standing there like, I just don't want to do it. It's no big deal. It's no judgment. It's just, I don't do it, or get high or anything like that. I don't do it. I haven't for so long now, I can't even remember. By the way, it makes dating hard, right? Because how many people don't drink? It's like impossible to date person. That's me. But anyway, so we make the compromises because we want to get along. We want the connection. It's not that complicated. We want to, because we know that if we say, I don't really like that you drink, then it's going to hurt the other person's feelings. It's going to get into this whole thing. It's very hard to explain this kind of stuff. They're going to feel judged, particularly about things like food. For me, it's also stuff like vegetarianism. I'm impossible, like terrible. I got K2 in the 7th, man. Give me enough time. I'll find something wrong. Doesn't take long. Couple conversations. I'm like, oh, no. She's really cute, really hot, but 10,000 things. I can find them really quick. And unfortunately, I really like being alone. I don't mind being alone at all. So my sense of the categories of right are spreadsheets and bullet points. But what happens though is that after you find someone that you can tolerate, like I can tolerate you, you've somehow managed to get through all of that. I can now find someone that I can tolerate. Now I'll try very hard to compromise because I want the connection. I want the sex. I want the connect. I want the hugging and the beauty and all, because I like it. We all like it. We all have Venus. Venus wants the connection. So we're like, it's okay. I can let that go. It's no big deal. It's no big deal. And things aren't a big deal. But the reason I'm saying this is because this is why we have to be very clear about what is worth breaking connection over. And by the way, I'm very clear. And when we are clear about what's worth breaking connection over, then it doesn't come out angrily. We don't blame the other person. There really isn't that. So by the way, it's not just romantic relationships, but it's in other things as well. We have to be very clear about what we want in our life and what we don't. And that's the Mars part. And what happens is when that's there, we don't get into these connections that get us doing all of this stuff. And until we're clear about what those kind of no compromise zones are, that's the way I put it, then we're confused. Then we're always giving up our value. Then we're always getting pulled in directions and we feel like it's the other person. Then we get into, again, part of it is all this pathologizing of other people that, they lied to me and they acted like they were this way, and then they really showed what they were. Most of it is we're doing that. We projected onto them something that they weren't. They showed us who they were. We didn't want to see it because we wanted the connection. Then after a while, we stopped trying. All of those I'd rather be happy right nows, wear themselves out, and suddenly we blow it up in their face like they did it. No, you did it. When that happens, you did it. You agreed with all of those little compromises, and they were thinking, well, you're okay with it. Okay. So then when you get freaked out and go all that, they're like, wow, where did all this come from? For example, that's an extreme version of it. But even in a smaller version, relationships are always dealing with some version of this. There's always these things. So the thing to know about this Venus Mars right now is that we're in that volatility zone with Venus and Mars where, all of these little trade-offs that you've been making, again, not just in romantic relationships, but maybe in business partnerships or any kind of connection where there's an agreement, because that's what Venus is. Venus is those agreements that you make. It could be business agreements. And any negotiated agreement between adults is Venus, because we sense that we can do a lot more with this person and really magnify. Think of like a business partnership. I can do what I can do, but what if I bring someone else in? Then it's almost like one times 1 equals 5, because we could magnify our impact if I find a strategic alliance. But then that's an agreement. You get this, I get this. What are percentages? What are we doing? Again, so that's a Venus thing too. It's a negotiated agreement. That's really what relationships are, all relationships. Romantic ones are much more personal because they're also, physical, and they really activate us in a very deep way and our vulnerabilities. So there's a lot more of that volatility. But again, if you get into any kind of intimate, even like business relationships, if they get really entangled, you'll see they're just as vicious. They're just as vicious, or at least they can be if you're not clear. So again, Mars tends to bring out that intensity toward Venus, and Venus tends to make Mars frustrated after a while, because what happens is after all of that, I just want to button that part up. After that, all of the I'd rather be happy than right. I'd rather be happy than right. What this is doing is it's damaging Mars. It's saying this is the negative influence Venus has on Mars is, oh, forget being right. Forget your values. Forget what's important. Forget fighting for what you think is right. Forget having good boundaries. Forget it. Be happy. Be happy. Happy, happy. Eventually, what it's doing is it's making Mars frustrated, because Mars is the part of us, again, that feels strong. As a strong individual who can manage those boundaries, but a strong Mars is willing to break connection. It's not just trying to make people happy so that they'll like you. Again, it's a real stuff, man. This is real stuff. Why do you do it? Because you want people to like you. And who is that about? Them? Are you really such a wonderful person? You're so nice and kind. No, you want them to like you. Admit it. It's okay. But everything is your ego wanting something. And this is the kind of game we play with Venus. You wanted the approval of the person. You want the attention of the person. You want the approval of the person. You want the person to like you. You want the connection. You want the sex, whatever it is. You want the Venus thing. So you're like, okay. All right, I don't need to be right. I don't need to establish my boundaries. I don't need to, this isn't worth fighting for. And again, that's important. We need to identify that. But introspect honestly about the things you argue with and your own part in things. Right? That's really what's going on with Venus retrograde. Sagittarius is, again, about the big kind of soulmate fantasy scenario. Mars is coming now, and the thing to take from this is that all of those little trade-offs, all of those little things, be careful, because Mars it's been building up. And by the way, even all of the concessions, once you get used to seeing stuff and you see people with their phony behavior, their phony smiles, oh, okay. After a while, I don't trust any of that stuff. I'm like, this person's not happy with this at all. This person is pretending something, And this is just the other side of some blow up because something ain't right here. I can tell by this person's expression and by the way they're agreeing to this. This is why I've said this many times. You have to challenge these agreements, challenge those yeses that you can tell aren't real. And you can tell they're not real because of the incongruity. The phony smiling and the like, all of this stuff. This is this like tortured Venus energy that all people, that especially most people, put on. When people are uncomfortable with saying no and breaking connection, you'll see them do this kind of stuff a lot. You'll see them do this kind of stuff and understand that when they do this kind of stuff, they're hiding all kinds of resentments that you're going to have to pay for one day. So I'll tell you, it's really true. When I get into any sort of like dating kind of situations, I'm always looking for this kind of stuff. I'm looking to see, just in general, I'm not gay, so, with a woman, to see if they're being real, like if they're real, if they're sincere and real. And they're not, because honestly, women do a lot of this because, they're conditioned in a lot of ways to like, be smiling and happy, and so much of it is, it's very phony. I'm just going to be really clear. And when I see that kind of thing, I realize like, I don't trust it. I don't trust the person. I told you, I have so many, I'm impossible. But as soon as I see this kind of like, it's literally trying to get me to like them, trying to get me to do this or that. But then I don't know. I don't trust any of it then, because I don't trust your yes. I don't trust a lot of what you're doing because I'm looking at a performance, not a person. And so it's like, all right, I'm not sure. But what can happen is this Mars now, relative to how much that's going on for you in your relationship, in your life or whatever, you'll start to see this kind of sort of backlash can really come back in relationships that you've had. Again, not just romantic, business, other kinds of things, even friends where there's a lot of connection or whatever it might be. So notice that. And it's going to be happening in conjunction with this Sun Saturn. Again, Saturn is combust. And the combust nature of Saturn is also really going to be showing up. Before I get to that, though, I do want to hit this again, and I do want to talk about this. Please, if you're joining us, like and share and subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, ring the bell to get notified of videos, live streams. Again, you see that especially on YouTube, it's very easy, but also like and share and subscribe on Facebook and Twitter if you're seeing it there. And I'm just making sure to do this because I tend to forget, and people are like, you should have more subscribers. You need to be doing more of that. Other people do all that. Actually, they're right. I forget to do it, especially when I come on. So just wanted to let you know about that if you're just sort of showing up now. But I want to get to this Sun-Saturn combustion. Now, combustion is one of those things when the planets get within certain distance from the sun. With Saturn, it's 15 degrees. So it just really entered this combustion zone. I'll tell you, one of the ways that I feel it almost all the time is gas. I don't know what, but man, I'm just definitely feeling like yesterday and today, just the gas, man, farting. See, I'm real. That's what the word is. The digestion is still good, but for some reason it was like in bed. It's probably a benefit to the women of the world that there's not a woman in my bed right now because I was farting like crazy last night. And no, just the gas comes up. This is one of the things that you could feel physically as Sun-Saturn really brings Saturn, it tends to push down a little bit of the fire, the digestive fire, like what's called the Agni. The sun really rules that digestive fire. And so Saturn tends to push things down. One of the things that you might notice, again, is it kind of tired, because Saturn, again, slows things down, pushes things down a little bit, makes them, again, Saturn is also a Vata planet, which is literally gas. Anyone else? We do have it. Oh, Brittany. I love you, Brittany. Brittany's my friend over there, and an astrologer and jewelry maker. She says, haha, honestly, I've had some gas too, haha, and hot farts to boot. Now that is what I call, that's a woman there. Hot farts to boot, representing. There we go. Oh, I've had the same feeling since yesterday. So even if it's not farts, like some sluggish digestion a little bit, got some lazy ass the last 2 days. Sean Vata, we got it. Yes, there we go. See, it doesn't take much. This is my role in life as Gemini, is to say the thing, to give everyone else permission to like say it too. So definitely, well, and you can see that it just moved into that orb. That's kind of why I talked about it, because 15 degrees, the last couple days, the sun has been close to that orb, and it's really just started for me last couple days, right? Like this week, I was like, oh. And the digestion isn't so bad, but yeah, the gas, that's one of the things I always notice. So I can always sound like a genius astrologer when Saturn gets combust every year, gas, and again, feeling a little bit tired and like a little sluggish. But again, it's pretty far away right now. It's going to get closer over the next, and again, the sun moves like 1 degree every day. So you can tell, this is like 13 days. 13 days from now, it'll be almost right on it, right? Because Saturn doesn't move very fast. So again, this is going on for the next 10 days, 10 to 13 days, 2 weeks. By the way, it's also once it passes Saturn. So again, this winds up being about 30 days, because about 15 degrees on either side of Saturn is the combustion. So that's like, about 30 days. So that's why I said both of these shifts, this Mars-Venus, you can see Mars isn't that fast. Mars and Venus are going to be hanging out here. This is going to be into February. This is a couple weeks going on, like February 10th, 20th, 10th to 15th or so. It's going to be, in the Rashi, and it's going to be closing the gap here. And again, same with Sun and Saturn. I haven't even mentioned Mercury retrograde is here as well, because we talked a bit about that already. But this Sun Saturn, it's going to be intense there for the next few, month or so. And again, you can feel the physical heaviness as well, things slowing down. So again, what I'll tell you, the things that it's good for though is really the spirituality, the meditation, because again, and you'll see it in the physical, that the physical body wants to slow down a little bit. I played tennis today, pretty intense tennis. I let it get away too. I could have beat the guy. He was guy I play with all the time. We're really competitive, and I had a chance. I was right there, and he took it from me. He had a little more energy to close it out in the end. That's what it was. So I'd beaten him the last couple of times pretty bad, so it was okay. He might be watching this, so maybe I'll say his name. No, he's probably not. But we were both pretty. I mean, we played some real physical matches, and both of us were. By the end, we were both saying, "Man, it was a struggle out there physically today." Because, and I was in the back of my mind going, "Yeah, it's happened in my 8th house." So again, it's kind of like we could both feel the like heaviness of the body. When usually when you're playing, like when I'm playing, even if it's intense and long, the adrenaline of the match and the excitement, I don't feel it physically. Like I don't feel like, oh man, my body, but I really felt it today. It's like right when we started, the first couple, even like long rallies, I was like, man, it's really hard today. So definitely felt it. But what this means is that things like that, I mean, tennis is very physical. You're running, you're sweating like crazy. It's a lot of expenditure of energy. It means that kind of expenditure of energy, even like if you work out or even like with your yoga practice or whatever you do that's physical like that, is going to be a little harder. Saturn is like kind of pushing the sun and the vitality part of the sun. By the way, the Mars part, Mars in Sagittarius, it was a lot of fun. So part of it was also, it was still a lot of fun because Mars was in Sagittarius, but it was the sun, which is like the vitality, like that inner, like that Agni, that fire that's like, okay, that was like, But what that does is that it pushes it, or it internalizes it. We have to interpret this. This is in Capricorn, which is ruled by Saturn. So Saturn is just like, Saturn has got the sun now. He's in his own sign. He's got Mercury retrograde, and he's got Jupiter. So Saturn is like, again, he's been the real, monster, the real beast of the zodiac for the last couple years, really, since COVID. Saturn moved into Capricorn, and everything has been Saturnian. Again, as much as other things have happened, we've, the nodes changed signs. We've had a lot of things we can talk about at different times, but Saturn is the king, because anytime Saturn is aspecting a planet by transit, opposite a planet by transit, for instance, last summer when I did updates, when Saturn was passing through all this and Jupiter was also here, Saturn was ruling Jupiter, Saturn, all those planets as they went through Leo. Again, all the aspects to Saturn, everything that Saturn is doing right now is like, wham! It's like, it's no joke. Again, and this is how you can look at it. So Saturn is really putting the screws on anything that he's touching. By the way, that'll continue for the next several years as he next goes into Aquarius. So even this particular Saturn combustion, even though Saturn is bringing down the sun like this, what happens with combustion is the sun actually really activates the other planet. Now, it tends to burn up certain aspects of it, especially the worldly aspects of it. And the sun, when the sun gets near something, like, for example, you'll notice if you see it in the sky, if you had been watching Saturn, especially a few months ago and whatnot, when Saturn was retrograde and Jupiter was retrograde and they were pretty close, you could see Saturn pretty bright in the sky for a few months, right? He was pretty bright in the sky because he's retrograde for a couple months. When he's retrograde, he's closer to the Earth. That's when the sun was over here. Saturn and Jupiter were very bright in the sky. That was in the summer, then in the fall. But if you've been watching, I have, but Saturn has been getting dimmer and dimmer and even basically disappeared in the sky now. So this is what happens in the sky. The sun is now near where Saturn is. So we don't see Saturn. This is what happens when it gets combust, because now it's all the way on the other side of the sun, where, like the Earth is here, the sun is here, and Saturn is here on the completely opposite side. So basically, Saturn's energy, as it comes to the Earth, is passing through the rays of the sun. This is why it was called Lost in the Rays. That's the Western astrology version, or the terminology for combustion is lost in the rays, because literally the planet is behind the sun. You're here on Earth, then you're seeing the sun, then Saturn is behind it. Again, now it's 13 degrees of ecliptic longitude, but that's enough to make Saturn probably disappear. I don't know, I haven't looked, but it won't be long before you can't see him at all. Saturn's pretty big, so you can see him usually for quite a while, but I think 13 degrees is probably, you might still be able to see a little bit of him. Maybe someone look and let me know. But it won't be long before you can't see him at all, and he's very far away. He's as far away as he gets. So it literally means that his energy is very far away relative to the Earth, but it's passing through the sun, which purifies everything. So the sun is purifying that energy of Saturn, which is usually fearful and stressful and controlling and those kind of negative qualities. But again, the sun is spiritualizing and purifying that. And the sun is the sun, make no bones about it. The sun illuminates things, he purifies things, he empowers everything. So the real empowered Saturn in Capricorn energy is accessible now very easily, because again, he's very far away from Earth, but his energy is passing through the rays of the sun, Surya Dev, who expands and who purifies the energy. Again, understand what purity is. It's a sattvic purification is what the sun is doing. So even things like a little bit of gas, what's that doing? It's saying, eat less food. Again, and that's a Saturn thing, right? Notice how these things aren't just like, oh, farting, you have a little, gas. Okay, but what does that make you do when you have gas? Well, you eat a little less. You watch what you're eating. You digest a little less. And again, this is actually a very powerful Saturn virtue. We usually eat too much, right? So we eat complicated food. The more complicated the food, the easier it is for us to fart and whatnot, because things are, our digestive things interfere with other things. Like you can't digest certain things at the same time, right? Because different digestive enzymes are needed. So if you eat certain foods together, you'll digest one at the expense of the other. And that becomes much more noticeable when you get something like Sun Saturn. So, yeah, and as Brittany said, chew better. That's another thing too. Chew, which again, very much Saturn, about being present. And again, chewing and slowing down, all of this kind of stuff, like all Saturn virtues, particularly again because it's in Capricorn. This isn't Saturn retrograde. I'm sorry, this isn't Saturn combust in Leo, where the sun will be dominating it. It's in Capricorn. And Elle said, could we get off this topic? No, we're going to be on the topic as long as I want, but you can leave if you don't like it. How's that? That's my Mars. That's my Mars Venus and my K2 in the 7th. How's that for you? So again, this real combust Saturn, like everything, like all the planetary forces, we can try to find something that's difficult and make it bad or something. But really what all of it's doing is showing us the lesson, showing us the karma, showing us that, again, as a way to purify those Saturn themes, the sun creates something like gas. So you eat less, so you slow down. And so again, things like the meditation, particularly because it's the Saturn in Capricorn. And really, if one sign is about meditation more than any other sign, it's Capricorn. Capricorn, Scorpio, Virgo, probably maybe three of the biggest. These tamasic, especially Capricorn and Virgo, especially, as far as the real kind of energy to like it and sit in it. Scorpio as well, but Scorpio is a little more emotional, but the practical, that earth, that grounding part is very much, especially Capricorn, because Saturn also likes things that to be simple and present and really, really facilitates silence and stillness and peace, all of that. So again, this is a very really good opportunity. I don't know if you've noticed that as well. I definitely have. I've definitely noticed things slowing down a little bit externally and going inward more, and feeling that urge for like simplicity and that real connection to that inner peace, inner silence, and stillness. So definitely these themes are really important for sure. I want to, again, one more time, if people are new, I did want to let people know about the 2022 personal forecast as well. I did drop the link in the comments, in the live comment field. It'll be in the description for the video and also in the comments. But again, one of the things, there's actually these 10 cycles this year that I talk about based on, each sign and these 10 shifts, right? One of them is the 3 Mercury retrograde cycles again. And that's going to be different if you're a Pisces than if you're a Leo, and if you're a, Scorpio or whatever. They're in different signs. Again, elevating connections and devotion once Venus turns direct in Sagittarius. Again, that's coming in a little more than a week. But I talk about what that direct motion means for each of the 12 signs, including yours. Then I talk about the nodes changing signs. That's right around the corner. And then I talk about it. And again, I also talk about the mystical teachings and the connections with this Jupiter and Pisces. All these different things for 2022, I talk about for each of the signs. And you can get all 12 for a greatly discounted price, because often what happens is you have people around you and you want to know what's going on with them. Well, you can also hear it from that perspective, and for students as well, to hear me explain each of the 12 signs this way. It's a great way to learn as well. So I just thought I would also mention that again. But definitely, these are some very interesting times right now with these two sort of, at least for about the next, close to the next month. The Sun Saturn combustion is going on in, for even longer, for about the next 30 days or so. And Venus Mars, again, the real benefit here, again, I talked about a lot of how they interrupt each other and whatnot, because there's quite a bit of volatility here. But it's also, in Sagittarius, this is also Mars in Sagittarius. Venus is also there. It can also really be quite an opportunity, let's say, for you to see your partner and your partnership and whatnot in a more elevated way. Again, especially Mars in Sagittarius is really trying to fight for what's right and the righteous cause. Again, particularly if you have a partnership where you share that with your partner, like you share the same spiritual teacher, the same guru or whatnot, to really align around that, and to really align around things that are not just focused on making each other happy and then being disappointed and all the projections and all the trade-offs and compromises. I kind of talk about it on that level because that's a very mundane level that we live on, but we also live on that other level where we sense that the other person is a divine being and a beautiful being. And it's sad and painful to the Venus part of us that falls short. And when I was talking about Venus energy and the phony behavior and all like that, that's not its ultimate potential and all the bad compromises. That's the ego trying to connect with that transcendent beauty, and trying to, we really see that beauty in that other person, and we feel the love, and we see that other person as a beautiful, child of God like us, and we want to be extended. And so again, when someone is in that mode, it's sad that they don't know themselves well. But what they're trying to do is they're trying to, sort of manage and try to connect these limited experiences and bodies and impulses with the transcendent. And so I don't mean to ridicule or to do anything like that, but it's funny. I mean, I like to laugh at it. It is funny what we do. But it comes from a divine source. Everything does. And so again, one of the great real divine potentials of this Venus Mars is to also feel good, whether you're in a relationship or not, because this is also important. The desires and the longing, which Venus, especially also like in Sagittarius, that longing for the soulmate you don't have, or that part of your connection that you don't have, or being disappointed in the partner you have, and blah, blah. It can actually get really sort of supplanted, especially with Mars there, with a deeper, willingness and courage, first of all, to look at your teachings more clearly. Again, not to project it all onto like you're a victim. Because again, what Mars does is it empowers us to be courageous. You're not a victim of your connections. You're making them. And so to really look at those things with courage and ultimately compassion, because again, they're different functions, but Mars can really bring the courage and the enthusiasm to, try to understand, that wisdom and that truth behind it that makes you actually strong. And then Venus there also can bring the compassion. So again, one of the reasons why and how this works, and the reason there's sort of high libido in someone's natal chart when they have this conjunction, is because these kinds of things can sort of happen naturally, like within a person. They can kind of want to, they get fired up about something, and then the Venus comes in and kind of, wants to connect it this way. And so it makes for a lot of passion. And again, because we're passionate sexually first, when we say passion, we think of like sexually or things like that, but it's also passion for life, especially in this case, because it's passion for life around the Sagittarius theme, passion for, a beautiful devotional, practices and world and relationships with other people. Again, Mars doesn't have to be destructive. It's destructive when we're not disciplined. And it's destructive when we don't know those no compromise zones that I mentioned earlier. And the reason it becomes destructive is because we hang on to things and we make agreements that aren't good, and now all that stuff I talked about. Or we wind up being lazy and letting someone else kind of take us off our course, and then we feel frustrated because, well, if it wasn't for this person, I'd be doing my meditation. How much I hear that. It's like, look, it's not the other person's fault. It's your job to be disciplined. They're not forcing you to do anything. It's a trade-off you're willing to make, so don't blame them for it. So to unravel all these things, and to also just get clear about your standards of relating, because this Venus in Sagittarius, it's in the sign where that's ruled by its exalted ruler as well. So it's really reaching for something transcendent. So keep that in mind as well. All right, so I'm going to end this now. If people had a couple comments, maybe I'll read them. Maybe I won't. Depends. But definitely it's some very interesting times, and these two shifts lining up are very interesting, both personally and with passion and desire, and also with solitude and stillness and whatnot. So nice to see a lot of people here. Nice to see you, Susan, Jane, Charlene. Thanks for your participation. Sean, been a long time. I know you. Nice to see you. Sense of humor. Yes, you do. You're another Rahu sister. These Rahu sisters. They see Rahu going, bah, and they're like, yeah. You're welcome, Elle. I kept talking. All right, folks. Have a good one.